you said no to De Bruyne. You said yes. Rather than going through your full 11, Wayne, who would you be your midfield three then, and who would be yours? If you've got him in and you haven't.
I'd go Keane, Scholes and De Bruyne.
No, Stevie Gerrard, no.
Keane, Scholes, Vieira.
We'll get back to Wazza in just a quick second because this is a really, really interesting little clip talking about who gets into the best Premier League midfield of all time. Is it De Bruyne? Is it someone else? And we also talk a little bit about, what the all-time 11 is as well, which is always interesting. Everyone's always got their own opinions and all of that, and Big D is no different. But also, Wazza is going to be talking about, his feelings towards the FA Cup. And has the FA Cup lost a little bit of its shine? Anyway, if you've got something on your mind, if something is bubbling up inside of you that you need to express, you know what to do. Stick it in the comments. The Big D reads all of the comments. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next Big D video hits. Anyway, stick around for after the clip because the Big D is going to be talking a little bit about what's discussed in this clip. Here's Wazza.
He's maybe just got the edge on Steven Gerrard. I mean, where do we all think where Kevin De Bruyne lies in terms of, if we're picking an all-time Premier League 11 in your head, does Kevin De Bruyne get in it? And if he does, raise your hand. Yeah. Oh!
I don't know. Yeah, put him in, yeah.
Adam hasn't got him in.
That's embarrassing, mate.
Is that how?
It's embarrassing.
How is it embarrassing?
He quite comfortably gets in. Who's getting? What three midfielders are going in front of him?
Well, Paul Scholes is ahead of him, in my opinion. If you're playing two attacking midfielders, I think there's plenty more.
You're stumbling, just say
I'd probably pick Roy Keane ahead of him. Different midfielders again. Gerrard probably ahead of him. I think he's a fantastic player, but I seen you say you think he's after Henry, the biggest import to the Premier League. I just can't agree with that at all. Just don't agree with it. I think people are going too far. Everything nowadays has to be the best, isn't it?
I'm not sure about that because we just said Scholes and Gerrard and...
No, but that's how everything is reported. Van Dijk's the greatest centre-back ever, Salah's this and that, and...
You've got a problem with Liverpool, haven't you?
No, Kevin De Bruyne doesn't play for... Well, I've got a problem with Liverpool, yeah.
He's going to have gone 7 years with only City.
But I think it depends on influence as well, and influence, like, in my opinion, Cantona was unbelievable in terms of as a player, but in terms of the influence he had on that group of young players at the time, I think you have to look at the influence which a player has. Zola, Bergkamp, players like that who are incredible players. So there's that. Listen, you could have De Bruyne in or not have De Bruyne in. I think there's that many players to choose from. I don't think you're right or wrong for having them in. But
I think what you said there, I think probably sums up a little bit about. I think that we always think of those three. Cantona, Zola, Berg, they felt like the first, didn't they? Almost like they almost built the Premier League in terms of foreign players. You think of mid-90s, I think of those players. And I think we look back on that. Listen, there are three legends of the Premier League. And I think when we compare them to sort of players now, we always think about them and no one's got a bad word to say about them, rightly so. But those three players we're talking about, their teams never won the champion. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if we take it for granted. Like I said, so what Cantona did, but we all know that United team found it tough. They were getting used to Europe. Cantona was probably never himself in Europe, but like, comfortably getting to semi-finals and winning it and getting to a final. Kevin De Bruyne's won the Champions League. We expect our teams to win the Champions League now, but in those days, in the early 90s, mid-90s, it was all just about the Premier League and there was foreign players and it was new and it was flashy and it was amazing. But those players never achieved what players did 10 or 15 years later in terms of being the best pplayers in the world or being the best team in Europe.
I think that's because the Premier League's come on that much. And,
maybe.
And Serie A has dropped. The league is probably nowhere near as good as what it was. So I think there's a reason for that as well, why that's happening. Like, if you look at De Bruyne, in my opinion, David Silva is right up there as well. From what he done, you look at that team, you've got Silva, De Bruyne, Aguero, you've got some unbelievable players, established players in that team. Where what I was saying about Cantona is he had a group of young players
more than what he did on the pitch,
who come in, and he was a massive influence on them players, which then obviously weren't there for the Champions League when they won it, but the influence we had in helping them get to that level, I think that's why I think Cantona was
There were times as well with Eric where we could only play 3 foreign players, which included the Irish lads as well. So you couldn't always play like Schmeichel was being left out at times, Cantona was being left out.
You're just thinking about that Barcelona game away, aren't you?
Which one?
The 4-0 one.
Yeah, but still, I just think when you look at like Cantona, you look at his legacy as well. I think it does get forgotten quite easy. You look at, he won the league at Leeds, and then he won it every year. The only year we didn't win it was when he was suspended for kicking the fan. So his legacy, I think, will just live on for a long, long time. And we probably don't go on to achieve what we did after. Like I said, he was a great leader.
You said no to De Bruyne. You said yes. Rather than going through your full 11, Wayne, who would you be your midfield 3 then, and who would be yours? If you've got him in and you haven't.
I'd go Keane, Scholes and De Bruyne.
No, Stevie Gerrard, no.
Keane, Scholes, Vieira. If it was a 3.
Scholes, Vieira.
But I'd probably go 4-4-2, just keep it old Mike Bassett route.
Go on, you might as well say the old team.
He changed all the time. Waz is in it.
Is Scholes going on the left?
Waz is in it. Nah. Scholes would be in the middle of a midfield 3.
Even in a 4-4-2?
Oh, sorry, 4-4-2. If I played a 4-4-2, it'd be Keane, Scholes, Beckham, Giggs.
Four's too much.
The FA Cup lost a bit of its shine when Man United decided to not go in it. When they play,
hold on a minute. That's a
when they
myth.
play-
Hold on a minute. That's a myth.
Hold on.
That's a
When
myth
they play
pushed by the UK
FA Cup
government.
semi-finals at the same time where Liverpool are going to win the league, you asked me about how big the FA Cup is. It's not me diluting it. It's like the other things that happen now, which makes fans go, it's all about Champions League. Yeah. If we're that serious about the FA Cup, make it as big as it was.
But what about you? Like, if it's me, I want Everton to win the FA Cup first. I agree.
One
year, Greg, honestly.
Also, you've been in the Europa League.
I get it.
It's still being Europe.
1 year doesn't change it into a Champions League club.
You're not, yeah.
I don't believe, honestly, if Everton got in 1 year, I'd be thinking, can we build? And, like, that's why I'm really impressed with Villa. They got in, and they might get in again. That's when you go, right, they are sort of getting in that. I think win the FA Cup and build, you've got that, haven't you? No one can take it off.
And
how old are you? 40?
Yeah.
So how many FA Cups have you seen Forest win?
Well, I saw us get cheated out.
No. How many FA Cups have you seen Forest
Don't bring up that now.
No,
That's
but I'm
hurt
saying,
me.
no, but Greg, we've won 5, but we haven't won one for 30 years. I'd swap.
I remember it. Was it 96?
95.
95.
You beat Man United.
Brilliant, yeah. That's what made me
Wayne
like
was probably
Everton.
there.
But I was there, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So the FA Cup is the only, as a fan, it's the only trophy I've seen Everton win.
Yeah. Don't forget the Charity Shield a few months later against Blackburn.
Samways.
Yeah, but that's another point, actually. You win the FA Cup, then Community Shield against you guys.
As a player, I can tell you from a player's point of view, we lost final on penalties to Arsenal. Then we lost in extra time to Chelsea. The FA Cup was always something which I was desperate to win. And then we went down against Palace when Pardew was doing the dance. I was captain. And that feeling of walking up the steps at Wembley and lifting the FA Cup is miles bigger than when I've lifted the Premier League trophy or the Champions League. That feeling of it's the FA Cup. It's historically, it's you've won it. It's such a good feeling for a player. So for fans, it must be. Well, I know it's incredible.
You'd won. So the stage you won the FA Cup was probably towards the end of your career. Yeah. You'd won everything before that. You know, your Champions League, your league, probably World Club Cup. Was that like always at the back of your mind? Because people always say to me, and Steve, don't know you haven't won the league, but I mean, someone asked me a question the other day about who'd won. Rio Ferdinand hadn't won the FA Cup. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so what I'm saying is, was that on your mind, even though you've won everything? You're thinking, I've got to get an FA Cup before I finish.
Because the FA Cup was always, as a fan, it was always something which you're hoping your team can go to quarter-finals, semi-finals, and then obviously to see Everton win it in '95 was such a big occasion, something which always sticks with me. And driving back to Croxteth and going into the pub with my parents and all the family, them celebrations, something which always lives with you. And then to win it as captain as well. I remember we had 2 parties. We had one for the players and families, one for the commercial team. And they tried to take the FA Cup to the commercial team after the game. So I've no chance. So I've kept it, took it to our party, and I always remember I took it to my room. And at the time, my 2 boys, they were in bed asleep, and I put it in between them, and they slept in the bed with the FA Cup. and then I give them back the next day. But I think it's got that much history around it, and I used to love the build-up now when you're younger and it's on flowers.
I view the buses.
It follows the bus.
Following the buses, all that. It's like it has
cop
been
songs.
diluted. It's definitely been diluted.
Stopped
which
bus
makes
winning it in
people like
2016,
me.
didn't you? Ed and Lukaku's shot off the line. That wouldn't have had to wait 30 years for that.
Never let it go.
Never gonna let it go.
The Big D agrees with Adam McCullough when it comes to, you know, the way people rate some of these players now. You know, people in football have got short memories, massively. And Kevin De Bruyne is an absolutely fantastic player. Absolutely. Virgil van Dijk is another one. He's a good player. And Salah as well. Yeah, class, blah, blah, blah. But the class for this era, you know, but if we're talking about all-time era, well, they just don't make the cut. It's a different era, like, because football used to be harder, I would argue. You had to be a baller back in the day to make it as a footballer, because, you know, attackers didn't get protected as much as they do now. So if you were going to be an attack and play, you had to be quick and skillful, because if you couldn't dodge some of these flying kung fu tackles and still keep the ball, you weren't going to make it. Just think about how good Roberto Baggio was back in the day. Del Piero, Zola, all those guys, you know. Is there a player now as good as what Roberto Baggio was back in the day? Is there a player playing now who was as good as Ronaldinho was back in the day? No. Is there a player playing now who was as good as Alessandro Del Piero back in the day? I don't know. I would argue no. If Alessandro Del Piero played in today's game, you'd probably play him as an inside forward playing for Man City. He'd probably score you 40 goals from the wing, because he was so intricate and he could score with his header, his right foot, left foot. And he could pass, he was just absolutely magnificent. He would have about 4 Ballon d'Ors in today's game, you know? So I mean, in terms of Kevin De Bruyne, yeah, he's been a good player, but I wouldn't even say he's top 5 all-time Premier League players. Premier League midfielders even. I'd have Gerrard, I'd have Lampard, I'd have Scholes, I'd have Keane, and I'd have Beckham, I'd have Giggs over him. So he doesn't get into that United team in 1999. He probably gets into the 2008 team, because, you know, Scholes, he was getting on a little bit at the time, and he'd fit nicely with, say, Carrick and Hargreaves, for instance, or Carrick and Fletcher. Fine, fair enough, and he would suit that 3 in midfield in that team. But that's only because of the tactics, and just because, you know, some of the players were getting on a little bit and we needed a midfielder at the time. But in terms of all-time players, he just doesn't get in. I mean, if the Big D is going to pick an all-time midfield 3, Premier League midfield 3, well, Roy Keane's in there, definitely. If I'm just going with 3, it's got to be Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, and maybe even Frank Lampard, you know, because Frank Lampard scored more goals than Steven Gerrard. Is he still Chelsea's all-time top scorer? But it's Lampard or Gerrard. It's one of them, and that will be a nice, healthy balance. So you've got Paul Scholes running the game, you've got Roy Keane breaking up attacks, and then you've got a goal threat from Frank Lampard. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. I wouldn't even have Vieira in there. So yeah, I mean, as good as Kevin De Bruyne has been, he has been good. But he's also been very lucky in that he had Pep Guardiola. And he suited that system perfectly. There are certain players out there who you can put into any kind of system, right? And they'll just thrive, right? Like Beckham is another one of them. They're just proactive kind of players. Jude Bellingham of today's game is the same. Roy Keane's another one. Zinedine Zidane, you know, you just stick him on the pitch and then he just runs games. But then you've got players like Xavi and Iniesta who didn't really kick on as players until Pep Guardiola came in with his system. And it's one of the reasons why I think Phil Foden's struggling for England, because he's been brought up in the Pep Guardiola tic-tac style. So you take him out of that, and he doesn't really know what to do, because I imagine playing for Pep Guardiola, he's got you so well drilled in exactly what he wants you to do, it's almost robotic. There's no free thinking, there's no creativity or anything like that. So Kevin De Bruyne will know where to pass the ball. That's it. Is there going to be any kind of creative, improvisation? Maybe a little bit, maybe, but I doubt there's going to be much. It'll be interesting to see. Do you know what? I could be doing him a disservice, because he did well in the German league, so I could be doing him a disservice. But the point I'm making is, he was very lucky in that he came across. He achieved mastery under a very specific set of circumstances, But anyway, yeah. But in terms of the FA Cup, I agree with the little City fan there. I think the FA Cup would benefit and would retrieve its lustre if the winner was given a Champions League place. But I also agree with Wayne Rooney in that the Champions League has kind of lost its lustre a little bit as well, because it shouldn't be called the Champions League, because most of the teams in it are not champions. It was called the Champions League because it was the champions of all the leagues in Europe were competing to be the Champions League European champions, so it's more of a European Super League tournament, Super Bowl kind of tournament now. And the way it's set up now with that big massive league system that a lot of people struggle to make sense of. That's just not quite lost its luster. So I kind of understand, what some of the fans from like the Everton and Nottingham Forest are saying, in that it'd be nice to have a day out. And the FA Cup final used to be good back in the day, yeah. And watching the build-up and stuff, it was a major event in England. And to think the FA Cup used to be the premier trophy of English football way back when. I'm not entirely sure when that changed, but I think it was up until the 90s, Certainly the 80s, when that was still considered, a top league, well, not a top league title, a top major trophy, but it's not now, unfortunately. It's got major trophy history, but it needs to be updated for today's game. And the only way to do that really is by giving the winners Champions League football, or even, stick them in a Champions League playoff or something. That would be really interesting to see. But yeah, anyway, what do you guys think? Does Kevin De Bruyne make your all-time Premier League 11? If so, what's the rest of the team? Please put your thoughts in the comments. And also, what do you think the FA needs to do to make the FA Cup relevant again? Be very interested to hear your thoughts. And what would you prefer with your club, with United, or if there's any rival supporters watching this channel? What would you rather see your club do? Win an FA Cup or qualify for the Champions League? That'll be very interesting to know. Thoughts in the comments, and the Big D will see you, as always, in the next one.